shoot, the flags first.
That's all right. We'll pretend we have one. I'll go ahead and call this Vernon Township Fire Protection Territory meeting to order. Call, let's see, roll call. Right, we need a roll call. I guess Greg Brewer here, Tanya Davis.
Here.
Lori May absent, all right. We'll stand, say the pledge of allegiance to our flag over here. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Two flags. All right. Approval of minutes. I believe Tanya and I both were here, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 23rd and May 5th.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 2-0. First order of business is the Indiana Task Force 1 memorandum agreement. I guess this needs to be signed.
Yes,
Okay.
so this is the memorandum of agreement, I believe. Let me see who the signatory is on it. Is it on the? There's not a signature line.
No signature on it.
Kylie, do you know why?
What's that?
There's no place for signature.
I could have Tom Neal here explain why there might not be a signature line, but.
So, good morning.
Morning.
What perfect timing.
Yes, thank you.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Tom Neal. I'm a Division Chief of the Annapolis Fire Department and Program Manager for Indiana Task Force 1.
Okay.
And the reason why there's no signature page is because it's a digital contract. So once you guys take a look at that, and I can answer any other questions that you may have, and then it will go to the digital contract portal for the city of Indianapolis, and then you guys will sign it first, and then it goes to Chief Malone, and then it goes to our OFM, and then it goes to our city legal. So that's
Okay.
why. And then you guys would get a copy of that to retain for your records as well as us. So.
So this is basically just allowing us to be a member. If we have somebody, if you have openings, they can apply.
Yep, so this provides you as a participating agency.
Mhm.
So the difference, if you're not a participating agency, you're a civilian member of the task force and you get paid on a city contract. This provides Vernon Township the opportunity to backfill those positions that are backfillable. So if we take someone on a deployment that's on the street on an apparatus, not in an administrative position, then you can backfill and FEMA will pay those costs so that
Right.
you're made whole. So the most important part of it is you're not short manpower. So we're not stealing, from Peter to pay Paul, that you remain whole so that you can provide the services that you've intended to provide to your community.
Okay.
Very good.
So
And I think the only thing, Tom, on this is, it looks to me like we have a misspelling. It says Ashley Gosnell, it should say Ashton Gosnell, so do you want me to make the correction, send it back?
Yeah, if you would.
Okay.
That's fine. And then the way our legal counsel wants to see that back page, they want to see the people who are currently already members, because
Yeah.
obviously they've made application. And then any other members, we won't add their names, but, and then their hourly rates.
Hourly
So
rates.
that's one of the things that what I'll do is I'll send an email with what we call an 18-1, and that's the person's name. It has their hourly rate plus the benefit rates for both straight time and overtime rates.
Yes.
So that we have that for our records. So because FEMA would like us, and they'll be sending this out probably within the next couple of weeks. Basically an annual estimation of what our cost is per day.
Okay,
And so that's for a type 1 team, which is 80 people, type 3, which is 45 people, type 4 is 22 people, or in MRPW. So mission ready package water. And so they try and get those costs so that they know what our burn rates are per
Okay.
day. Yep.
yeah, so I think if you wanna, you can communicate that with Kylie. I can ensure that we get all the rates projected correctly onto the documents, and then we can get that.
Sure.
If
That'd be
this
awesome.
board approves, we'll get that signed.
Yeah.
You guys have any other questions for Tom?
no, I
I see
just want to make sure. Okay, I'm good with that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, Ashton and Gosnell and I have actually been members for a little over a year, almost a year and a half now, getting all of our back training done and completed. So we really appreciate your support on this.
Don't you have any questions?
Okay.
You have to make the motion.
Do I need to make a motion?
Yes,
Okay.
You're the motion person.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the memorandum agreement with Task Force One.
I'll second. All those in favor of approving the Indiana Task Force One memorandum agreement signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 2-0. Okay, next up is the fire.
I did provide you with the, we did get policy from Sugar Creek. There, it's in your packet. Beth has revised it to reflect kind of a first reading of what we might do for Vernon Township. So if you guys would take an opportunity to look this over, we'll discuss it when we meet back in June. But this is at least, you know, kind of a first run at it. If you've got any questions or anything that needs to be changed, that would be there.
This one for the task force.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
here's my thoughts and tell me where I'm off base on this one.
Mhm.
Okay, so the position's fire marshal, it reports to the fire chief.
Correct.
My concern is we're gonna be going through the process of hiring a new fire chief. And I feel like since that person's gonna be a direct report to the fire chief, that fire chief should be part of, or if not running the hiring process on that. Because I don't think that's really the board's responsibility. The board's responsibility really is to hire the fire chief, and then everything trickles
Right.
down from there. And so I have a real hesitation of saying, okay, well, we're gonna approve a job description for the fire chief, and then we go out and we're gonna start this process in June of going through and hiring a new chief. And that person comes and says, well, wait a minute. What you guys got outlined for a fire marshal is not what I'm looking for in that position. And, or we get somebody in that position, fire chief, we hire and goes, I can't work with this person. And we're back into that a cycle of where and from our standpoint as a town, I've talked to Ryan Crum. We don't necessarily need a fire marshal for any of our building codes because we've got plenty of people who are certified other than testing the fire alarm back and forth. So it's not we could get by for temporarily. So it wouldn't hold up anything from a development standpoint. So that's the discussion I want to have is, you know, at the end of the day, if we're hiring people as a board and a chief, we get whoever the chief is comes in and says, listen, I don't like this leadership team. I need to make changes. Are we duplicating our efforts kind of a thing?
I mean, I understand that, and I know there was some reservation. I think the concern is we were as administrative staff of what, 5, and now we're 3.
Yep.
Or well, no, we were 6 and now we're 4.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge is right now we have, and this is not, while it is the fire marshal, I think the big thing is that it's a preventative role in our community, right? And making sure that we're, you know, and while I think Noah's doing an excellent job filling in, he has regular responsibilities, and that is proving to be a little bit challenging, trying to balance all the things that need to be done, because there are a lot of plan reviews and things like that happen. I think the recommendation from the administrative staff would be to try to go out and seek candidates, see what kind of interest we get. You know, if we get 5 or 6 or 7 candidates, we may have to lengthen the process. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what we might get in terms of people and qualification level. I would like to see that if we did, you know, gonna go down this path of, you know, doing an interview process, that we would involve possibly Eric or someone from the towns of.
That gets back to my other question. Who's interviewing and who's deciding on the hiring? Is it Scott and Kylie? I mean, they're the interim chiefs, or is it the Vernon Township Territory Board?
I mean, I guess well, and that was why I think it's, you know, it's a good question to ask. I mean, who sits on that panel? You know, I understand it reports to the chief. Technically, it doesn't have to report to the chief. By the way, we're structured right now, it does. legally, it doesn't have to report to the chief, although the fire chief has ultimate responsibility, I think, for, you know, ensuring that court enforcement is done and those kind of things. And, So, I don't know.
Here's where I take a look at it. This is kind of like, to me, I have a police chief and the town council decides, you know, we're gonna go out and hire your assistant chief or your sergeant and not include, and then that person eventually is a direct report. The way we are right now, it's a direct. Now, if we want to rewrite and say, okay, well, the fire marshal is a direct hire of the township board, then we need to come up with that policy. But right now, the way this states is that he is a report to the fire chief. And so I think that person, if I'm a direct report, you know, or somebody's direct, I should be the one in that process of hiring. You know, that's where you know, it's kind of like, I'm gonna use you as an example. That'd be like the Vernon Township Board hiring you to work under Flory and she has zero say in that, right? And how would that work then? Well, you didn't hire me, the board did, and so I really don't need to follow what, you know, you can
I
do
think that
that.
gets a little weird.
But that's where it is.
So can I jump in for a second too?
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges we have is I am happy and will continue to fulfill the duties of the fire marshal for as long as we need to. At our previous fire marshal's recommendation, we've pretty much paused all annual commercial inspections at this point. The only thing we are focused on is new construction. So anything permitting from the town of McCordsville, Fortville, and the unincorporated areas. One of the challenges with that is the state in one of the newest House bills just put a requirement in that all plan reviews have to be complete within 7 days or the towns cannot charge their permit fee if we extend beyond that.
Yeah, that goes into effect July 1st. I'm quite aware of that.
So I'm now once a week meeting with the town of McCordsville, Eric and the team to plan review of any new construction that comes in.
We already have that certification. We have, our planning director has it, or Eric has that certification. He just doesn't have ours, so he could technically sign off on those plans.
Eric can, but keep in mind, it's not just McCordsville. We're covering Fortville and the Vernon Township area as well. So we've had a full-time resource for 5 years doing all of the fire marshal's duties.
Yeah.
And we now have
Okay.
myself covering. both.
Here's where I'm getting at, okay? This kind of stuff is what irks me about the way we run this fire department. Okay, we're saying this person is a direct report to the fire chief, yet we're gonna go out there and hire somebody and post a job description, and then we're gonna go out there and put a job description out for a new fire chief. And people don't wanna stay in their lanes. To me, this should be a fire chief's responsibility, a direct report, yet we're all trying to do a job that's not our jobs. And so I can't sit here and go, okay, well, we're gonna put this out, we don't have a fire chief, 2 months later, we're gonna hire a fire marshal, then 4 or 5 months later, we bring a chief in, and then next year, I got a new chief that we've hired that we like this, you know, I got a fire marshal I gotta get rid of, I can't work with them. And so now we're back, I'm tired of repeating the system. And we're doing that with the fire chief right now, we're in another cycle of having to go out and find a fire chief, and it seems like it's just a constant situation. I love the fact that got Scott and Kylie, because they're the longest tenured people here. I've never had an issue, ever had anybody come and say, hey, I got a problem with our EMS director, or our training director. That's the great thing. I love that. That's the kind of stuff I want. But now, you know, that's the thing I don't want to get into, is a bad situation where we go out and find a great fire chief candidate. They come in and start coming into this, go, hey, listen, I got to rechange things. I don't like the way the fire marshal's doing. Now I got 2 people butting heads. That just drives me insane that we're constantly doing it. So can we have a little temporary pain until we get these people in place? My number one priority is getting a chief in place before October, November, to be honest. And I mean, I want our June meeting, we have that job description. We vote on it, we get it out, and we are pulling in candidates. We got a process.
Is that realistic to expect to?
I mean, I don't know. I think it would be challenging because with Flory not being back until after the 21st of June, I think having a vote on the 29th of the job description seems ambitious. I'm not saying it's not feasible. You know, and, you know, we have been working with some executive coaches with the leadership team here. and Cora Showalter, who works for what would she be?
So both work for the IDHS, the Department of Homeland Security and
In
Fire and
the,
Safety.
and they've been doing executive coaching, and so, I think it would be good to engage her in helping to write the fire chief's description with your all's input. Because I think we need to take that next step and look at not just writing an internal description, but having somebody who has some viewpoint of what the organization might need as well, because she has been involved with us over the last, 6 or 7 months, so. I don't wanna rush something that I feel like we need to take the time to do correctly, and I do appreciate where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I'm just worried about overtaxing the people that are here more than anything, and that's my concern.
can we look at then, here's another option. Is there a way to subcontract out to somebody on a temporary basis, those plan reviews?
So we do work with the other fire marshals in the county. I've leaned on them for questions that have come up when necessary. There's not any sort of formal MOU or agreement for them to cover anything like that. That's something we can
Well,
explore.
My point is, we're not paying a fire marshal's salary right now. Can we use some of those funds to temporarily subcontract out? Here's the thing, I'd be more comfortable if the direct report fire marshal was to the Vernon Township Board. Because then I could say, yeah, we're the supervisor of that person. So any new fire chief that comes in says, why isn't the fire marshal? We have written that so that person reports to us. I would have zero problem whatsoever of us pushing this forward today. The problem I've got is hiring somebody into a position that reports to somebody else and they had zero say in who that hire was. And then expect them, when they take that job, to sit there and be able to work together. Because to me, these two, there's about 5 people that all have to work together pretty well with the chief. And if they're not working well with the chief, the fire department's not gonna run very effectively. So I hate putting people in a position where they can't have a say on who they're gonna be working with. Because let's be all frank, when the new chief comes in, I know that there's gonna be that learning curve. There's gonna be, and there might be some personality conflicts. That's why hopefully during this process, we take the input of our current leaders into consideration when I want them to be a part of I do want you guys to be a part of the process, because you're gonna have to work with that person, right? And if all of a sudden, Scott comes to me afterwards and says, there's no way I can work with these 3 candidates. Okay, well then I'm not gonna disrupt the apple cart, and I'm just not gonna do it. I mean, I'm gonna find people that hopefully can connect and gel and be here for a long period of time. Because one of my biggest issues has been with this department is the turnover at the top lately.
Well, and I did ask the question because when we kind of all knew where this path was going, I asked, Zach Matthews, I said, what's the average tenure of a fire chief? 5 years. That's the average. So it's not, I think there's a misnomer potentially out there that there's these chiefs who last 10, 12, 15, plus years. I think that's aspirational. But the reality is the average fire chief lasts 5 years.
Why is that? That seems very odd.
So we went through a lot of stuff and there's a lot of high cognitive load as a fire chief.
Yeah.
And so I do think some of it does end up being, and I think when you look at a department of our size, the expectations of what we've asked from the beginning when Mark Elder became the fire chief, asked him to wear a lot of hats.
Sure.
And that's, and I think there's, you can only sustain that for so long. And then I think you've got, there's some potential opportunity where, you look at it and say, do I think this is sustainable for the next 10 years? I mean, I know initially, he told me I have 9 years left. Then it went to 5 years, so it kind of, I think there was a time, there is some of that has to be considered. I don't, I'm not, I hear what you say. I love to have a tenured chief who stays for however long.
Yeah, but I think also too, and this is my fault a little bit because I didn't push back hard enough, but we didn't really have much of a say on the first 2 chiefs. Okay, before Mark. That was kind of, we'll go ahead and just do it what it is. And then Mark was more of had so much institutional knowledge already that we really didn't go through the formal process, right? So we've never formally done that. And so now I'm getting into a situation where I really just don't like it's just a personal thing. Like, I don't like circumventing people's roles and responsibilities. I would not want to go in and say, hey, by the way, Kylie, I got 3 EMS people, we're gonna hire them, and you don't really get to talk to them, but you're gonna have to work with them, and they're gonna report to you, and then that's just not fair to that person. So my whole thing is, if we can temporarily use one of our other fire marshals, to me personally, that means we can't dilly-dally, let's get going on the fire chief hiring. We got personnel needs to be hired, because I need that person to be in that role and responsibility. They need to be the one interviewing, bringing in the leadership team. Is this somebody that's gonna be able to work with us on a daily basis and go from there? I understand your concern. Hey, I got a lot on my plate. So we've got money that we were using for salary for a fire marshal that I think we could divert those funds to pay somebody on a subcontract level until we get somebody in here who would be full-time and has been vetted by the leadership team. Because I really don't want to be in an interview with the fire marshal. But I feel like we have, that's the other thing, who's interviewing, who makes that ultimate decision, right? Because if that person's reporting to the fire chief, and I hate to say it, but you 3 form a committee, okay, they're intern. A guy comes in, goes, or a lady comes in, whoever our new fire chief is, and says, well, that the intern's hired. I don't want that person, right? And are we creating a bigger mess down the road because we're like, oh, we need to get this person in here because we're backlogged?
Yeah.
I would rather use the funds that we've already got and temporarily use it. And then that puts really the responsibility on the fire territory board. Don't dilly-dally, get that job description out there, get the process started in June as much as we can. So we get a chief in here. And I really, again, my goal is to get somebody in here hopefully by October, because they need November and December to work with staff to understand the budgeting process. You know, I don't.
Well, that's ship sailed.
No,
But for 2028, yes,
yeah.
because that needs to be
Right,
started by
right.
April of 2028,
Right,
so
so
correct, yes.
I need to have somebody in here in that time frame so they're acclimated, they understand their personnel, but they also are working and going, understanding the finances. Because to me, that chief is the chief administrator, right? They should understand policies and procedures, general orders. They should know, they should be working with their top people and understand how they're running their departments. They should be working with you to understand the finances. They should be working with, have their fire marshal in place so they understand how are you gonna do these inspections, what's our process. So there's a big learning curve, whoever comes in. Now, it doesn't make it easy if you hire internally, maybe, I don't know. But I do think we've got to go through this full vetting process on a new chief this time. Is my, what are your thoughts?
I think so. I do think so.
That's fair.
And I just look at this and go, it'd be completely different if it said reported to the Vernon Township Board. I'd be A-okay. Now, if we want to do that, and we want to entertain a motion to change that. I don't know how a new chief's gonna feel coming in to go, wait a minute, this person here, because that does, what does that say? If I put on here, reports to Vernon Township Board, and I hired you, what would you say? Who's your boss?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. I mean, and really, this says reports too, so
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's great, and
I mean, Florida's gonna come back and go, what, I thought Greg would know.
No, I appreciate your perspective. I think our real concern was, the reality was when Josh announced his resignation, Mark initially said, I'm gonna go ahead and post the position.
Right.
And so it was like, and then he said, no, I'm not. And it kind of went back and forth,
Mhm.
and I think we all were like, okay, we see the hole and the gap right now, and with them filling in those roles, that does kind of push some other responsibilities, to other people on the team to help assist and make sure that we move everything forward. I think that was the bigger concern, was how could we, could we move this position forward and get somebody who worked well with this team? But you're right, that does.
I would be more comfortable just taking the funds that we were normally gonna pay our fire marshal and use those if we have to. if they're gonna do it out of the grace of their, goodness of their heart, great, but I expect compensation. So I think we got plenty of money left in that person's salary that we really need to subcontract out those plan reviews. And I would say reach out to, Brian Crum, because Eric he's certified to sign off on those things as well. So they would be more than happy to help out, even if it's signing off on stuff for Portville as per se, but I know we have that ability to help in the meantime.
I'd have to look at the legality of the AHJ side of it too, though, of the fire marshal's role and where that falls, but
I mean,
might be a question for you for later.
Based off of my, off of the text with Ryan this morning, they basically said they do not, at this time, there's no legal requirement they are aware of, so they are good here. Eric does still have his fire and hazmat certifications. But he does not have his arson. We can do their own inspections at this time.
But if he wants to step outside the jurisdiction of McCordsville and go into other jurisdictions, we'd need interlocal agreements just to confirm. But
That's fine.
that's
Or we can, or that might just be, I mean, majority of your stuff's probably coming from. Plan reviews is probably coming from McCordsville, right?
Yes.
So we can do our own temporarily, if that would help you guys out, that's save money, and then if you really got inundated, the other ones.
I'm happy to do it, and I think it makes sense for me to continue doing it until the new fire marshal's in place, because then I can help provide some continuity
Sure.
for that person. And it just gives another set of eyes, and Eric, I know, is incredibly busy as well, so I wouldn't want to put more on him and have
Well,
a
I think-
domino effect here, so.
Well, I mean, again, I just don't feel comfortable starting a process that, I don't ever like to undermine leadership. That's my big, I don't do that to Paul because I don't understand police work, right? I rely on that person. I rely on him to go out and hire who he thinks are the best people he can work with, right? I don't come and say, hey, Paul, I really think this guy needs to be assistant chief. I would never do that here either. I would never come in. My job is to find, and Tanya's and Florida's is to find a chief, and that person, we're hoping they build the department that they feel is the best. And I feel like this kind of circumvents them by saying, well, you weren't here, but we went ahead and hired a subordinate, and now you're gonna have to work with them. And then that person's like, well, you didn't hire me, and then I would the fire board, and then it gets political, and I don't like that. If I can avoid it. Just my thoughts. Your thoughts?
I think the interesting thing about I would like for you to keep in consideration this job description. This was with Josh's assistance upon his departure, where he sees that the position of fire marshal has evolved from the original description to this description. So I think, I mean, while I appreciate, I know we would love for the new fire chief, I think to hand him and say, hey, why don't you hire a fire marshal? Oh, and by the way, write a description too, because you don't know.
I don't have a problem with the description at all, No, the description's fine.
Okay,
I'm more concerned, like, are we posting this and starting the hiring process? I think the new person, and that's where I think the job description is fine.
okay.
Whether or not we post it now, I think it needs to probably wait until we have a chief and say, now, one of your first priorities, we need a fire marshal.
Okay.
Is my thoughts.
Okay.
Now, we can rediscuss when Flora gets back, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely, I mean,
But I feel very uncomfortable with that. I mean.
I agree. I do think, that's a big thing to be able to get along with whoever it's.
But, and the thing about it, like, I look at the hiring process for firefighters and, we have a approved list, right? The merit board, there's that merit board process. So in that situation, that's okay, we got a list of people. They know what that role and responsibility is, and they come back to the merit board and we want to hire X, Y, and Z. That's the process to me, and I think in this situation, we're kind of cutting out a very key voice in that process, if that person's not in place. All right, so I'm good with the job description. I don't think we need to post it though at this time.
Yeah.
So we can take action on that portion of it today, approving the job description, but not to post would be the motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the job description for the fire marshal, but not posted as of now.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. The job description passes 2-0.
And the
then-
recommendation was also made that I think we should consider inviting, when this job does get posted, maybe some potential candidates or some potential other Hancock County fire marshals to sit in on that panel interview as well, because they will know. I mean, I don't know how much, depending on who the new fire chief is, they may or may not know very much about the fire marshal's position
Sure.
or have that interaction. So having other people that have, maybe have that role and could understand.
So I think that brings up a bigger discussion on that, right? How involved do we need to put a policy and procedure in place that we have, for certain different levels, do we put together an interview committee or an interview panel, or does that fall on the, because right now, the hiring process, the only people we're responsible for is the chief
Right.
of hiring, right? So, but we also the ones that end up dealing with all the problems. And so do we need to, as a board, form a hiring or interview committee going forward and having people sit on that have different, do we put a board member on there? Do we put person from leadership? Do we put a lieutenant or, somebody on there to have that kind of input? I don't know. I think that's something we need to probably have a discussion about.
I know that you had brought up at the last meeting, maybe having an outside party to manage the fire chief's process.
Right.
And I did have a discussion with Chief Klein from Sugar Creek. Just because he said, oh, I hear, and I said, yeah, this was brought up. And he said, I will tell you, it's incredibly expensive when you go that route of a third party. He said, you're probably going to be spending between $10,000 and $20,000 to have an outside party, handle that. He said, I think that there would be a willingness from the Hancock County fire chiefs to help facilitate that process. If you wanted, for instance, to make up have a panel and have somebody else from another fire department sit on that panel, that would be an option.
See, my kind of envision, even something a little bit different, is you get maybe a 3 or 4 department people, okay? Kylie or Scott, okay, or both, that's fine, consent. Maybe like your union rep, and then get 3 or 4 people and let them be the group. Let's say we get 30 applicants.
Mhm.
Maybe they whittle it down to 10. And they do the initial interview, okay? Like they bring in those, and then they make a recommendation to the fire territory board of like 3 finalists. And those 3, then we would then have those 3 people come in based off the recommendation of the board. And then we can make that final call. And, that way we get the people who are going to work on a day-to-day basis, having some say in the process versus,
That's important.
oh my gosh, 3 people who we don't really know.
Yeah.
They
definitely need to be
buy us
involved.
fire equipment, but do they really know anything? I don't know diddly squat about the day-to-day fire operations. I don't.
Yeah.
So why should I be the one, the 3 of us make a determination on who's going to lead the department? And then Scott comes up and goes, the guy you guys or the lady you guys hired has no clue what they're talking about. I'm like, oh, really? Well, on paper, they look great,
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm envisioning of the process. It can be tweaked, but that's what we haven't had in the past, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And I think maybe then there's, skin in the game by everybody.
Yes. I agree.
Because if somebody comes back and says, man, this chief is terrible. Well, they were one of the final 3 that was, vetted by this group of people who were your coworkers.
Yeah, and that was brought up, that I think there was only 2 questions asked the day that we had the conversation with the shift crews to say, hey, here's what's happening and here's how we're gonna handle things in the interim. And someone asked, can people from the membership of the department, potentially have an opportunity to meet the candidates at a minimum, even if they're not on the interview panel. So I think that's kind of like a
I
next
think that's
step.
all a good idea. I think that's what makes it work. If you don't have a connection with that person, then how do you run a department that's you don't have everybody's attention?
Yeah.
So that's really, I know we're kind of putting the cart before the horse for our gym meeting, but that's kind of where I was thinking. I don't know if we necessarily need an outdoor if we're gonna do that step, I don't think we need an outside consultant, because I think the vetting process happens through the department and works its way up, and we make the final decision. I do think that if you're not gonna involve that and you really wanted an independent third party, yeah, you go that route, but I do think that if we're gonna put a process where we post it, all the candidates come to, an independent, maybe Beth, if she acquires, says, okay, guys, now, Kylie, you're going to, we need to set a meeting with this group to go through, the 30 applications. They need to whittle it down and then basically turn it over from there. You guys are gonna have an interview day, schedule that, and then we can set a deadline of, as a board, we'd like to see the final 3 candidates at this board meeting, so we can do interviews by such and such date.
So our police chief always has another chief there when he interviews our officers.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea to have, maybe even ask Brandon if he'd be interested or somebody.
Yeah, I have no problem who that third, that board would want to put together. If they said, hey, we want to include an outside chief in it to do the vetting, that gives them a little autonomy to kind of go through and really what I would say more of a professional vetting, because they're gonna know what those certifications mean. They're gonna know what those years of experience mean. I'm gonna look and I go, oh, that looks pretty cool. And then
And on the fire marshal's job description or future interview process, we did talk with both Town of Fort Bland, Town of McCordsville's building inspectors, as well as the Hancock County Fire Marshals, to float the idea of one or multiple of those individuals sitting on that interview as well, in some way being involved in the process, because they're gonna work directly side by side.
yeah, I get, and maybe that's where we as a board direct the chief. That's how we want that process to go. I have no problem. But again, I don't like ever having somebody who's gonna be a subordinate to somebody else. And I'm in direct report. I don't have a say in that hiring process. I think is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I think, I think that's a great idea to, once the job description is finalized and it's posted, we can have them send all their resumes and information in, and then, at a minimum, we can have a screening process, which is the right thing to do, right? First, before we do anything else, and make sure that they have the qualifications.
Let's take a step back here real quick. Then maybe, and this is where my thought process just comes into play. Maybe we as a Vernon Township board set up or create an interview committee for these, let's say Kylie says, I'm out of here, you guys are idiots, which is a possibility. Okay, how do we go about, do we put the onus strictly on the fire chief to find that replacement, or do we create this board that allows, our 2 directors right now, a couple of shift managers, do we create that as the first step of any hiring process? So, hey, chief, we're gonna hire a fire marshal. We're gonna vet these candidates, and we're gonna send you, chief, the 3 recommendations 3 or 4 recommendations that you can then choose from.
Can we do that? I like that.
I think that would be, to define, because that's one thing, while we have that process defined for how we handle a new hiring list, right? We actually don't have that process defined for any other role in our organization.
For administration.
Right, and I think.
Merit law requires we file a process for the.
But-
Right.
But
But not for,
civilian admins.
yeah.
But now all of a sudden, and again, so that would be my preferred way of going forward in the hiring, because now somebody says, well, how'd you hire that person? Well, the chief just pulled it, Okay, well, no, there needs to be a tiered process for administration hires. Which means there's a group that makes a recommendation to the chief then, because if a new fire chief comes in and says, well, wait a minute, we have a policy, if you don't like that, then this is probably not the department for you. This gives people who work on the day-to-day shifts a say. It gives the people who are going to have to work with that chief a say. And then on the other end of it, we get professional recommendation from the people who've been working here the longest, saying, we like this, we think we can work with this person being our head administrator.
Yeah.
or these three, and now we can then vet them and do the interview. Because we're gonna have to work with that fire chief, right, on, at our board meeting, so, you know, they send us three people, and we go, wait a minute, these guys are, what do you see in them? We can send it back, but there's a checks and balances process in place.
I think
What
that's.
do you guys think about that?
Do you like that, or no?
I mean, we've kind of already talked around about it, of the panel type portion and getting more involvement from everyone around, so this is just gonna be more structured.
I think it just needs to be board approved, because here's my other thought. Tanya and I and Flory are no longer around, right? And we have turnover at the top administration, and then it's just a free for all. We've already set in place, you know, hey, we have a policy and procedure that somebody can point to and say, now they want to change it, they can always change it, but they can say, no, the previous board put this process in place, we need to follow that. And I think that protects the integrity of the department.
I agree.
I like it. Yeah, and I think it's something that was probably long overdue.
I had been tasked at the last meeting with creating bylaws for the how board handles specific matters and roles and responsibilities, as well as drafting a policy. Or if there's a temporary leave of absence by the chief or the EMS chief, so I can just incorporate this as something else to have.
Yeah, I think you need at least a 5-member interview board, because, you know, you want an odd number to break a tie, right? Majority rules. If you guys were to put together a group, who would you all include in that?
I think what you need to think about is what types of people are in the 5-member board, right? Is it, you know, do you want an outside fire chief? Do you want do you want a lieutenant or captain or a battalion chief? Like what?
Well, here's where I would throw in that. You could have an outside chief non-voting member. Be there as an advisory role. You know.
And really, you shouldn't vote, I guess, but yes, I agree.
Like,
Yeah.
because let's just say they have, and they call up Horning down, hey, you're on the committee, hey, I can't be there. Well, you're really just looking for advice from that position, so could they then just call up Chief down Sugar Creek, say, hey, could you come in and sit on this, be our advisor?
In my experience too, they always have great questions.
Yeah, but it being a non-voting member, then they don't feel, they can be a little bit, I feel, more open in the process. Whereas I think you want, you know, obviously, your chiefs, assistant chiefs being involved in it, right? Probably want the union rep, I would say, would want to sit on that, I would think, right? I mean, boy, you cut that out, that you really could start. And so there's 3 people, and then if you pick, then do you allow the union rep to pick the 2 others, or our union rep gets to pick one, and a
Are we
board
talking
member?
about a board for just the fire marshal position?
No,
I
I'm
think we're
talking about
a hiring process.
an administrative interviewing board or hiring. board.
Right, but for what positions?
Fire marshal,
And fire chief?
fire chief, EMS director, training chief, any of our administrative roles.
Okay, okay.
I think chief, battalion chief and higher, right? Or no?
Battalion chief falls under the merit.
Merit, so anything of, so.
Pretty much if they're in this office
The
building.
administrative.
Yes, and anybody in the administrative hiring board is what I would say is who that covers.
Administrative roles, okay.
Because now that gives, and I would say, I would just say either the union rep can choose one. Other fire or.
Are they
EMS.
certain rank or higher?
Would there be?
Typically, that's what you see in other departments. is-
Or would you rather have the 2 captains, station captains on there?
I wouldn't, I would choose battalion chiefs over that, because they're direct role up there, and then they're no.
So would you and Scott, because you're technically the 2, I'm gonna say assistant chiefs, like if you're
Yeah.
breaking it down, right? You 2, union rep, and then how many battalion chiefs do you have?
You got 3.
So, yeah, I want an odd number, do you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. I need a little time.
Or you can go 7-member and let the union rep choose 2, and then all 3 battalion chiefs are on there.
Well, that's
Or,
current.
no, I'm
right?
sorry,
So
the
some
union
of
rep
it's
could
gonna
still
be
get-
more battalion
Sorry,
chiefs.
let's see, let me do the math here. You two
No,
are-
there shouldn't be more than, there should never be more than three
And
because
did we say
No.
that the fire chief is part of this? So
No.
this year will be wonky because
No.
there's two of them.
No, here's where I'm going with this, okay? Here's where I think there's two different hiring processes this board participates in.
Okay.
On the administrative side, they're gonna be involved in, hey, we got a new fire chief or anything administrative, okay? They're gonna be, everything flows through, on the fire chief side to us. So they're gonna do the interview, they're gonna narrow it down to two or three candidates and send it to the Vernon Township Board.
This fire board is going to make for the fire chief
They're
position
gonna make a recommendation.
to the three of the members.
Yes. Now, let's say you have, I'm gonna just use Kylie. Kylie says, I'm retiring, I'm done, I'm out of here. I'm headed to Key West, don't bother me ever again, okay? Well, we got a vacancy. Now, in the old ways, we would just leave it up to the fire chief to do the process, right? In the fire. This would say, okay, that all applicants would flow through this interview committee, who would then narrow it down to two or three or whatever and they would make a recommendation to the chief, who then could make that hire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the
There's-
territory board is not actually having any approval or oversight of anything outside of the fire chief.
Right, the way it's always been.
Okay,
Does that make sense to you?
yeah, then I just need a better description now of this 5 or 7 person board.
Well, and
how
I
that
think if you
looks.
go 7, because then you could have 3 battalion chiefs, Kylie and Scott, Scott on there, that's 5, union reps 6, and then they can appoint somebody from the ranks, from the membership, so then you got 7. And then that way, everybody's got a say, it's a majority vote. They can come up with their own bylaws, who runs it, who's the, president, vice president, they can vote. And then, but we put the process in place, you guys are just really there, do the initial screening of the applications. You narrow it down to however many you want to bring in for interviews, but you need to at least send to the chief or to the fire board a minimum, no more than 3
finalists.
finalists. Because I don't know if you want to sit through, if we had 20 chief applicants, we narrowed it down. I don't think you and I want to sit through 10 chief, and because then I'm gonna be inundated like, okay, well, who's the best, and try to remember. I want somebody to kind of narrow it down, funnel it down to me. Here are who we think are the top 2 or 3 candidates. They might not get, but they need to at least try to shoot for 3 to send to us. And same thing to the chief. Here are 3 fire marshals or 3 EMS directors we feel are capable of working with us. And they might get down to where there's only 1. I mean, that could be the case, but.
So I think for Beth's purposes of writing this though, right now, I know that currently the 7-member board would be made up of the 2 co-chiefs, but in the future, does that just mean 2 administrative personnel?
I
I think
think,
this is where I'm having a hard time is if I'm making a recommendation to the chief, why is the chief sitting on the board?
He's not.
he's not, he should not be sitting on the board.
Okay.
I think in this case, it would be potentially Scott and Kylie, but I
So
think,
we're
training
doing-
chief and EMS
This
chief.
policy is gonna,
It's not
It's gonna
current, it's
morph.
not interim chiefs, it's the training chief and the EMS chief that would sit on that board.
training and EMS.
The only issue would ever come up is if we're replacing them, then you have it go from a 7-member board to a 6, but I think you're still probably okay on that.
So union rep, training chief, EMS chief, union rep gets an appointee
Yes.
and 3 battalion chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Any qualifications on union rep appointee that you want to establish, or do you care who it is?
I have no idea.
I don't think, I think I would allow the union
Yeah.
representation to pick someone from the membership and maybe they vote. I don't know.
Yeah.
The membership decides who they want
I
to
don't care, I
vote.
just want to put it in there if you want.
No, I think that would probably be that's a discretionary.
7 members.
But and that's why when you brought up the hiring, I just have been envisioning this, how do we get, to me, I think that it also boosts morale a little bit, because
agree.
now you're like, hey,
Giving them the responsibility.
giving them some of the responsibility of,
Skin in the game?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Proverbial skin in the
Cause
game?
I don't like this guy, and I think you're saying it, well, now you have, if I get
There's
somebody,
somebody in between that can take the heat from that.
well, and here's the thing.
Yes.
In the hiring process, if I get a shift, just a firefighter who's, well, I don't really like to do this, guys. Well, you need to go complain to your union rep, because they were the ones that sat on the board.
Right.
And they were part of the process,
I think less of that'll happen because of that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, and I think that's a good opportunity for, I mean, and then it narrows it down to hopefully who are the most qualified
Right,
candidates and best suited from the department's perspective to lead. And that gives you guys at least some place to start with, because I agree, I don't know how you would narrow down if you had 20 candidates that came forward. I don't know how you would narrow that down.
no, and there's gotta be that process, and I think the problem I have with any kind of board, is I don't have firefighter expertise, I don't have police expertise, I rely on the people who do this on a day-to-day basis. I rely on your information to make my decision. So if I get all these applicants and, well, who went through all of them? Well, what are your qualifications? To narrow them down, right? Now, somebody says, well, when you hired the chief, what were the qualifications? The qualifications were, we had the department vet and make recommendations to us. So we're relying on their expertise, their knowledge to put the right person in that job. And so when they come to us 3 years down the road complaining, we're like, wait a minute, you recommended this person to us.
Yeah.
So the only gap that I think I might see is, because we've designated the training chief and EMS chief to serve on this board, if it's that role that is actually being hired.
Maybe you
So
phrase
where's
it-
Would you
my-
just
phrase this to division chiefs or deputy chiefs? because they
division
have a-
chiefs or deputy chiefs, because if in the future, if there were ever deputy chiefs, which we don't currently
Right.
have, it would
I-
eliminate the need for
I
redundancy.
kind of call them, I call you guys, I know that's not your title, but I see you guys as the deputies, but
So I think division or deputy chiefs, and there would be 2 representations from that grouping.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm not saying E EMS.
No, I wouldn't,
Not named
I wouldn't
positions, right?
designate the type, I would just designate that it has to be
Yeah.
at least 2
What if
people
she's
of
moving
that
to Key West?
of that
She
level.
can't be on the interview
No, it's not a
board.
place I would go, so you're safe.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's why I think you get 7 members,
Got it.
even if
Okay,
you're you're interviewing one of the replacements, you still have a good enough, the odds of you having a tie, well, if it's a tie on 3 recommendations, then we got bigger
And
problems
we
than
still
that.
want an outside voting chief as non-voting.
Non-voting,
I
yeah.
think you want, does it have to be an outside chief, or could you just say outside the
I think somebody-
organization?
I think it has to be somebody who's in the fire service.
I would say yes.
Yeah, outside the department.
So, a non-voting, advisory member from the fire service profession. It could actually even be a retired. I would even be okay, like if somebody said, yeah, we're gonna have, IFD's retired chief sit on it. I would be okay with that. They had that professional knowledge, right? All right, so we probably need to make a motion to authorize Beth to create these committees, correct? Or this committee?
At least to draft the policy.
The
I'm just gonna
draft
draft-
policy?
I mean, I don't know that you have to make a motion for it, but you can. To give me permission to draft a policy for you to review
I
at
think
the
we
next
should,
board.
just to be,
Okay.
cover our venue.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to instruct Beth to create that advisory.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 2-0. I just think that's gonna be so much cleaner, and
I like them having involvement.
I do
because
too.
think
I
that's what
just-
needs to happen.
that's always been my. I just have always felt like we should have more of
Yeah,
that. All right, moving on to old business. There's only one thing.
Yeah, I just, we want to make a motion to rescind the investigation that was requested at the last meeting.
Second. All those in favor to rescind the investigation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 2-0. Any new business? All right, any announcements?
Blood drive today. 1 to 6, right here in this building, right here in this space.
Okay.
Along with the farmer's market, we're gonna work on some parking, but,
Do we need any police to be over here to direct
I
traffic?
don't think so. I think I've got it planned out while I was sitting in the rain watching
You
this
know,
morning, but
I
1
kind
to
of
6
keep,
today.
I kind of keep eyes on my neighboring town and their little Facebook page. And the last time you guys had everybody's complaining about, well, I can't walk there and the parking's terrible. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I'm not going out there, so.
It's actually been
I
really
think,
good.
I think we've got it worked out now that we've
Nobody's
redirected.
ever happy.
Yeah.
No, now that we've redirected the parking over to Mercy Church.
Okay.
It's been way better.
And I actually think ideally it works best because now the ground will be wet today, which will be a downfall, right?
Mhm.
But this way, people are not walking down Vitality while cars are trying to go up and
Yeah.
down Vitality. They're coming from Mercy Church behind the station, and that gives them a more direct path because, yeah, that,
Do we have any plywood that you put down
probably not.
for them to walk on? No.
Yeah.
It's on our property anyway, so that's the church's property.
Yeah, I just think, I just start laughing. I get the problems Portville has.
It's actually, the farmer's market has actually been really
Whatever.
successful the last couple weekends now that we've got parking figured out a lot better. It's been much better.
And you have none, right?
Oh, I'm zero.
Yeah.
We're perfect. Yeah, there you go.
So blood drive today, 1 to 6.
Awesome.
I want anybody's blood. I'm a heart vampire right now.
I think just next meeting,
Yeah.
it right now is scheduled for June 29th at 9 AM. I don't anticipate us having to change that. Lori will be back on the 21st, so that will give her a week.
So I think our number one thing is, since we're going to do the hiring process in-house, I think we'd like to, let's try to get a vote for the interview team, so we have that in place, policy in place. That way, then we could, if we're good on the job description, we could get that posted, and then hopefully we can start getting the chief resumes in. Sometime we'll get that posted in July. Hopefully we start seeing resumes in August, that committee can get together after we've approved it and set dates where they're gonna, if we set a deadline of, let's say, for resumes to come in or applications for the chief to be, let's say, August 15th, that they're gonna have a meeting. They're gonna be driving that process.
Yeah.
Hopefully they say, okay, we're gonna have a meeting to go through the resumes. We wanna have these dates set up for interviews, and then a third meeting or third or fourth meeting where they finalize the recommendation to get to the board. And hopefully we can get that, where we're having interviews sometime in October or by November and a hiring by the end of the year. If we can do that, that'd be awesome. But I really, I don't know how long it would take, a job like that. How long do you, I think that's one of the things we gotta talk on the 29th is how long do we want to keep that window open for applications, right?
I mean, I don't know. I think if you get much past 30 days, I mean, I think, I would hope that if you, I think we need to talk about what's the mechanisms by which we're gonna publicize it, right?
Right.
How are we
That's
gonna do
not-
it correctly
Yeah.
so that we get,
Where are we gonna post? Who are we gonna,
Yeah.
is there I'm gonna ask, is there a job board?
There is.
For strictly firefighting?
The state
position?
has their own, IDHS has created a public safety personnel
Okay.
portal, and then, governmentjobs.com has an entire portal we can post to. And then our typical other means of.
See, I wouldn't know that. I'd say, well, post it on Indeed.
Yeah, and they will show up there too.
Well-
We can post them.
I'll just say this, when Tanya, retired, Galbraith, we went through that whole process of trying to find a town manager. I can't tell you how many non-qualified people sent in a resume. It was a waste of our time to go through, no offense to police officers, but you're a police officer. What do you have, knowledge you have of being a town manager?
well, and what I would like to do
Right.
is, as long as you guys are agreeable, I would like to receive all of the all the resumes and applications here and if you would allow, I would like to at least screen whether or not these people are actually qualified to send them to the interview panel. I don't want to send people
Yeah.
who don't have the proper qualifications. So I think we need to establish the list of these are the qualifying standards, right?
Right.
Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? What do we want to establish? And that way I can at least vet whether or not they actually meet the requirements. If they don't meet the requirements, they'll just be automatically.
Well, that's why I was asking if there was a
Yeah.
professional job board, because I think,
But I think the problem is that you often have people who will say, well, I don't have this exactly, but I'm gonna apply for it anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, there will still be people who ignore them, but I think your
Right.
qualifications are identified in your job description.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that, I like a vetting process with them and board, I'm okay with, I think that's what our number one priority is, we on the 29th is, what's the job description? What's the time frame? Where do we want to post this? And we should have plenty of time because I think you have a draft or that you're gonna.
I believe I sent it to you.
Yeah, we've already got it. So we have plenty of time on our end. It's what Flory, what input she has on it, but I like this idea of them. I think it's gonna work really well. And if it doesn't, we can always tweak it, but there should be no down the road, anybody questioning, well, why did they hire that person? Everybody's gonna have, has a vested interest in this department is going to have a say in the process. So, I think the great part about it for us, this is where the test run's gonna come into play, because we're gonna do the fire chief first if we do this. And if that process works out, then that should be really good. Then whoever the chief comes in, well, I'm a hire fire. No, we have a process, policy, and you will get a recommendation from these people and you will get that. Now, if he rejects them, or she rejects them, or we reject, then it goes back through the process again. It's okay, well, these people, we didn't want him. You guys are gonna have to go through the process again. And it might be a little mundane, but it at least gives everybody that say in the process. All right, so our next meeting is June 29th at 9 AM. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn and
I'll second it. Adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.